the reason why shared responsibility is critical today are sort of two focused. There has always been the problem of different business owners or unit owners owned pieces of the shared responsibility, but generally they were all within the same organization. Today, in a multi-tenant environment using cloud, you're relying on an entirely external organization to own part of that responsibility. As we then start understanding the power of devices and we're moving devices outside of our normal physical security control envelopes, we can't rely on physical security boundaries anymore. And we can't rely on the fact that at some point, at least it's all one organization, if that's a hospital or a drug developer, whatever the case may be, that they own all of the pieces. That there is necessarily a divided and fractured set of ownership. And because that ownership is no longer there, there's no longer one person who has to get up in front of the cameras and say, this was my fault, right? There will be shared responsibility for an infraction across that chain. Or if you are ultimately deciding who's responsible, you need to be able to identify where the responsibility really lied. In the event of a breach, who owes it, especially as we start thinking about indemnification. So most of these services comes with contractual clauses around, do we owe you money in the event of a breach? So who is responsible for fixing those items, right? Is the IoT device provider responsible because they had bad code in their device? Is the cloud provider responsible if they didn't secure the data, or is the data owner responsible because they didn't use the correct tools or enable the correct encryption, right? That they took an alternate path. The need to be able to understand that, whether or not we're talking legal responsibilities, regulatory fine responsibilities, simply public perception, and ultimately market value and stock impacts, right? The impact of confidence of investors in all of these organizations, the need to understand where problems broke down and who is ultimately responsible for those becomes critical at each one of those stages.